Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Benefits Buzz. I'm your host, Eric Pill, and I'm joined on stage by my co-host, Kelsey Burgad.
You didn't even say it like I'm a basketball star walking.
I know, Kelsey Burgad.
That's
much
more,
better. I know, you deserve that.
Yeah, very on brand, thank you.
Well, I'm super excited as I always am. We are in our finale episode of season 5, and we've got one hell of an episode lined up for you today, don't we?
I'm so excited. I mean, we had Jennifer last year, and I'm stealing your thunder announcing the guest prior, but we had Jennifer with us last year, and we brought her back because she did such an amazing job. And then I don't know if anyone knows Tori Dunlap, but I've been following. Yeah, there we go.
There it is.
But I've been following her and listening to her podcast for so long. So when we were thinking about who we wanted to bring alongside Jennifer today, we're like, hey.
Yes.
Let's do this.
We're a little starstruck. It's all good.
Yeah.
And we're having this big celebration because it is a big moment it's HSA Day episode. We did this last year. We tried the live audience. Now, if you're listening to the podcast, you might have heard some rumbles, but we're in front of a SHRM conference. We've got 450 HR pros in the audience. Make some noise! Yeah! I love it. They are pumped, and I am pumped. HSA Day, if you're wondering, this is a day about HSA awareness. We've got a lot of great content planned for you. We're recording this now. It's going to go live on October 1st. We've got SHRM webinars, credits. If you're interested in more SHRM credits, we got those for HSA webinars we got available, and a lot of great OE content around HSAs. But this is our big monumental episode of HSA Day and the Benefits Buzz podcast. And so with that, if you wouldn't mind, Kelsey, maybe give some background about HSA Day, what we're doing, and why this episode and this podcast.
So in 2019, WEX sought out to solve an issue that is important across our industry, and that's the benefits and financial industry, and that's that people don't understand their benefits, right? I mean, think about those 26-year-olds who are coming off of their insurance for the first time, and they're looking at their information, and they're like deductibles, out-of-pocket max, in-network, out-of-network, co-pays, co-insurance. The list goes on, and it is so overwhelming and so confusing. So while part of today is focused on HSAs, we are talking about benefits and financial literacy as a whole.
Absolutely. And to do that, we have two amazing guests. I'm excited to introduce them now. It's okay that you stole my thunder.
Yeah, I did.
But I'll give them the formal introduction they deserve. First, to my left here, we have, again, those of you in the audience know her very well, Jennifer McClure. She's the CEO of Disrupt HR and Unbridled Talent. Jennifer, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. So glad to be back.
Give her a round of applause. And of course, we have our financial expert in the house, Tori Dunlap. Tori is the founder of Her First 100K, an internationally recognized money and career expert, and a host of a pretty popular podcast yourself, isn't that right?
Yeah, I'm the host of Financial Feminist. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Absolutely. Well, we're excited you're here. Okay, well, let's kick this off, right? We kind of set the vibe. There's a lot going on in the world right now. Last year, we were talking about the Great Resignation. This year, we're faced with inflation, right? That's one of the big things that's on everyone's mind. And so when we think about inflation, I want your perspective really on Tori, maybe specifically for you, what do you feel like the climate is right now? What are some of the biggest challenges you find everyday people like us are experiencing right now with inflation? Where are we feeling it the most?
I mean, it's a mess right now. We're in this really interesting time where there's parts of the economy that are going great, right? I have a lot of clients who are actually coming to me being like, I have 6 job offers on the table, and I'm not sure which one to pick. I have other people, right, who are getting laid off. We have rising gas prices. We have, of course, inflation that seems to maybe be trickling down, but then we got the report last week that it's increasing. So it's just, like, even as experts, I'm a little baffled. Yep. It's a weird dichotomy of a lot of things at once, and so it makes it very hard to navigate, both as someone who has some sort of understanding of what's happening, but also just as a general human being trying to survive.
Yeah, I mean, if anyone's been living under a rock, inflation is at over 9%, which, I mean, our lovely producer, he's in the audience here, but...
Taking copious notes right now.
Yes, he is. It's at over 9%, and to make it that tangible for anyone who hasn't noticed it in their wallet, energy prices are up 41%, gas over 60%, used vehicles 7%, new vehicles 11%, if you could even find one. Food prices 10%, and then don't even get me started on the housing rates of 6%. I mean, give me a break.
Yeah. So. I don't like to go to the grocery store anymore. It costs way too much.
It's painful.
We're getting Hot Pockets for dinner. That's all we're getting.
Well, those are even more expensive. Yeah. So, But Jennifer, what does this mean for employers? I mean, this is a huge issue for people just in general, but what does that mean for employers?
Well, employers are dealing with employees who are under stress, right? Not just themselves, but the fact that the wage increases that many of us have had to implement in our organizations in order to be competitive for talent are not keeping pace with inflation, so it doesn't feel like a wage increase. So it's difficult, I think, for employers during times like this where everyone's feeling the crunch of the dollar goes less far than it has in the past. And so then I start to feel like, well, maybe I'm not getting paid enough, but yet my employer is raising wages for a lot of reasons, both to account for inflation, but also to remain competitive for talent, but it's not matching up.
Right.
And so I think that's a stress on both sides. Employees are trying to figure out how to do more with less, and employers are as well.
Well, and 47% of Americans say that the biggest stressor they have is finance, right? So, Tori, I mean, what does that mean for you and your role? I mean, what are you seeing that people need to be thinking about, tangible ways that they can make their dollar go further?
Yeah, I mean, we know that over half of marriages end up, being dissolved, right? End up separating, and that's largely due to money. That's the number one reason that relationships end up falling apart. We know that that's the biggest stress. The American Psychology Association does a study every single year of like, what's the thing that's stressing you out most? And for the last 12 years, it's been money. So what I'm thinking in my life and my finances and what I'm guiding people towards is having the like plan A through C of what happens when things get a little sticky versus what happens when things get bad versus like the worst, right? This is the worst ever. So I think we're like in between A and B right now for most people, right? You're prepping potentially for it to get worse. So right now what I'm having folks do is any contributions, extra contributions you can contribute to your emergency fund. If you don't have an emergency fund, at least 3 months of living expenses in a high yield savings account and buffering, putting more of a buffer into that emergency fund. And then for me in my own money, I'm looking at, okay, what things could I cut if it gets worse, right? Like I'm still going out to eat a little bit. I still have a little bit of that flexibility versus if things get absolutely awful, okay, what can I cut, right? And it's probably like my Showtime subscription. I don't need to watch Outlander as many times as I do, right? But maybe I want to keep my Netflix subscription. So like that's the trade-off, right? Is like plan A through C. And if you all haven't done this in your own lives, you can kind of look at your money and figure that out for yourselves of like, okay, what am I doing to batten down the hatches a little bit versus it gets worse versus it gets absolutely dire.
Yeah, that's really good advice because, I mean, I'm on Starbucks on Friday, that line isn't any shorter. People are still spending on the same things.
Well, and that's what I mean is that, like, it feels like some people are doing fine, feeling a little strapped, but, and then there's others, of course, who have had 3 years of hell. So, like, that's the weird economic thing here is, like, there's some people who are largely doing fine and, like, gas sucks, but, like, it is what it is, and then there's other folks who are really struggling.
Absolutely. And obviously, if you're an employer, you're going to have probably run that gamut based on your employees that work for you. And so we kind of touched on this, Jennifer, right? I think maybe the raise around 5%, but we know the inflation rate's at around 9%, give or take, on the month. So that's like a 4 to 5% difference in purchasing power. I'm going to have a hard question for you, but is it up to the employer to address that? Or what should or could they be doing to help that, knowing that their employees experiencing that difference in purchasing power?
I don't know that it's up to the employer to solve it. However, it's up to the employer to educate their employees about what their role is, both the employee's role as well as the employer, and how to at least get to a point where we can make it through. The employer's always been, the source of income, and people have always overspent or not lived within their means, or they have, and that is a given. So I think we need to be educating people, not just about what the economic future looks like, but what we're doing. Many of our employers, I was just having a conversation with my friend over in the corner about some employers have been making big strides to get to pay equity in their organizations. So they have, rearranged salaries or moved people up and spent a lot of money to try to become more equitable. Now we're having to become more competitive for talent out on the marketplace. And we're also adjusting people at a higher rate to try to keep up with inflation at least a little. Yeah. So maybe as an employer, you are doing a lot of things, but your employees don't see that or know that because you haven't done as good a job as you should about communicating what you're doing to do that. On the other hand, on my podcast last week, I had Dr. Alex Alonso, the Chief Knowledge Officer at SHRM, So it's a great interview. You should go listen to it. Impact Makers, when you listen to Feminist. And I asked him the question about kind of like what the research arm of SHRM was seeing into the future. What has changed over the last couple of years? And I was really surprised. His answer is that workers are viewing employers now as that you need to take care of their lives both inside and outside work, which was surprising to me. I mean, in some respects, we've always had the benefits and the pay, but I didn't really think that employees were looking to me as an employer to take care of their whole life. But he said that's what research is showing. They're looking at you to help them in their whole life. And so inflation is affecting their life, and so they're looking to you for answers. And
Great news, HR pros. They're looking to you for more. Right?
Our job was so easy before.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, it's such a cakewalk job before. Now they have to take care of them at home, and it's a tough gig for sure, right? And I think to that, education is key. And I think one of the big things we're hearing right now, whether we call it the Great Resignation, the reshuffle, re-elevation, but there's also this new term, quiet quitting, going on, right? So there's a lot happening. And so I wonder, a lot of times you have your annual salary increases, right? Is this a case where you go, here are the people we want to make sure and keep? Do you do like a mid-year bump? Do you do like a spot bonus? Like can you give some tangible examples of what employers might do, or something you've heard that employers are doing to help with some of that?
Personally, I have opted out of the quiet quitting trend. I refuse to name something that has probably always been out there, that some people do less and just bide their time. I also saw that then now there's quiet firing.
Yes, I saw that too.
Where employers are saying, yeah, we don't need you anymore, but we don't really have the courage to tell you that, so we're just going to kind of ignore you so you'll quit quietly. And then I saw a tweet last week from someone on Twitter that said, I got quiet promoted. I got more responsibilities, but no increase in pay or
All the
promotion.
time.
Blame marketers. There's a buzzword for everything, am I right?
It really is.
Please.
So to answer your question, what can employers do? We need to do what we've always needed to do. We need to educate people on what we can do and what we're offering to help them live their lives both at work and outside of work. But we also need to be providing opportunity for them. You're going to need them, as I said earlier this morning. You're going to need those skills in the fact that people have been in your workplace, and so you'll want to keep them. Are you doing a good job of helping them to see the career paths and the opportunities for growth and development within your organization so that they're not quiet quitting? They're excited about their growth. And remember, growth is not straight up the food chain for everyone. Growth can be more challenging work, growth in their skills, growth in opportunities to contribute and make a difference. So that's really, I think, where we can all opt out of the quiet quitting, firing, and promoting. Just treat people right, educate them, and participate in their growth.
Well, and if I may too, the positive part about quiet quitting, right, is boundary setting. And I've seen that with a lot of employees where they're like, quiet quitting just means you're working the set hours that you're paid to work, right? And I think especially after 3 years of potential burnout, coupled with inflation, one of actually the best things you might be able to do as an employee is set really hard boundaries of, okay, if I'm not getting a raise this year, if I am not, taking full advantage of my benefits in the way that I maybe could, well, first of all, do that, take full advantage. Right. But the second thing is, it's like, okay, if I'm not being compensated for this further work, then I'm going to stop doing that further work, right? So that might be a good way to help combat inflation when no money is being exchanged.
Sure. It's a great dynamic. It's a great discussion on all of that. Thank you for both your perspectives.
Yeah, I mean, from an open enrollment perspective too, you talked about education being key. Do we need to shift how we handle open enrollment communication and re-educate now when we know that quiet quitting or quiet management, that type of thing, and reinforce that, hey, look at all these benefits that you have that you may not be taking advantage of. I mean, it's not always just about a raise necessarily. Right. It's about knowing what's actually there, because I would say that there are probably a lot of employees that don't even know what they have in front of them that they could be taking advantage of. Would you agree?
Absolutely, and I think that's what's really important, is to remember that communication about your benefits is not just in October or whenever you have your open enrollment period. You have so many benefits that you're offering to your employees already. They understand 10% of it at most. I know when I left the corporate world in 2010 to start my own business, and I went to work for an executive search firm, but it was 100% commission, and I had to buy my own benefits. And for the first time in my life, after 20 years of standing up in front of people every October and saying, you don't understand the value of the benefits that we're providing you, I was like, wow, I did not understand the value of the benefits that I was provided, because now I'm having to go out and pay for this myself. And I also, my son started working with Procter & Gamble in July of 2020, and I can't, I was married to Procter & Gamble for 16 years. I know they're a good employer. They offer excellent top-tier benefits. And I'm constantly saying to him, you have a benefit for that, when he's bringing up something that he might be struggling with or he wants to do. And I'm like, check your benefits, talk to your HR people. And he's like, I'm so glad you used to work in HR. I didn't know. I know all these things. Well, they've done a ton of education, but it's about doing education in a timely fashion and maybe ongoing, rather than thinking about it as being a once-a-year event.
Yeah, and to couple with that education, to give the millennial Gen Z perspective, I have a lot of people who come to me who are of an older generation, and they're like, I can't get millennials to care about a 401k, right? I can't get them to contribute, I can't get them to care. I'm 28, the vast majority of our audience are millennials and Gen Z, and I've gotten them to care because I have them picture 65-year-old them.
Right.
Now, 65-year-old Tori is going to be drinking Chardonnay with lunch and flirting with her much younger Pilates instructor named Luca. That is planned. And I'm going to foster a bunch of dogs, and I'm going to live under the Tuscan sun vibes in Italy, and that's my plan.
Right.
And so when I ask a 25-year-old or a 30-year-old, what does your retirement look like? What does grandma or grandpa you look like? Suddenly that shifts a lot of things into perspective, right? 28-year-old me is, going to concerts and having fun and doing those things now, but I'm also protecting grandma me so she can have that Sauvignon Blanc, in Cabo. So I think even the education, the way we go about it is not just you need a 401k, because no one cares, right? It's more about the storytelling and then the why behind it. The why is we want to protect older you just as much as you're hopefully taking care of current you's happiness.
I love that perspective, both of you.
Well, and Grandma Mia is going to be with you.
Yeah.
with
Great.
that Chardonnay.
Can I get some of that too? Yeah.
Sounds great.
No one invited you.
Okay, fine.
Luca is my
Fine. Oh, well, so I love where we're going, and I want to actually think about this a bit more holistically, because we've touched on some of the benefit work. We've talked about the value of that. I love the communication around open enrollment, and I love thinking about your future self. I think one of the things we have to also understand is taking place is not only just financial wellness, but overall employee wellness. And our producer, Hayden, over here, always loved to get nerdy and find these great stats, and so I want to read some of them off, because this is what we're facing here. So a recent EBRI Greenwald research study revealed that 1 in 3 employees don't feel they have enough savings to handle an emergency, with nearly half of Americans unable to cover a $500 emergency expense. Couple that with another study found that 7 out of 10 employees think it's their employer's responsibility, right? This may be what you're talking to make sure they are financially well. And of course, last but not least, let's not forget, we compound that with 50% of employees leaving jobs for mental health reasons. Oh yeah, forget the last 3 years of hell we all went through.
Yeah.
And what we have this kind of a perfect employee wellness storm happening right now. And I think to think about this in a vacuum or in a silo doesn't make sense. I think when we think about the wellness of our employees, we have to think about all these things. And so with that, Tori, Jennifer, I'd love to get your thoughts on just employee wellness in general. What does that mean to you when you're an employer trying to take care of your employees? When you think of employee wellness, what's the first thing that comes to mind?
I think of well-being, as I said earlier this morning. It's about, thinking about the whole person, the whole human that comes into your workplace, and not just the person who does a job for you for a paycheck. We really do have to incorporate what we're doing to help people live a productive and healthy life. For years we've talked about work-life balance, and then people argued that it's not work-life balance, it's work-life blend, it's work-life integration. It's just life. And the fact that your employees have stresses outside of work as well as inside work is also your issue. So what are the benefits offerings that you are putting out there to make sure that people are able to care for their whole self, and that we're not just looking at, okay, here's the standard healthcare plan, here's the standard dental plan, you got some good benefits, go do your thing. Because people need support, and it's becoming, thankfully, more acceptable for people to reach out for mental health support of all kinds, to think about their physical well-being as more than just weight loss or smoking cessation. We have to help educate them again for a lot of benefit, for their own benefit, for their well-being, but as we know, it benefits our bottom line as well, to have people who are healthy, productive, able to engage in life and work in a productive and healthy way. And so the more that we can do to help people take care of that whole human, it's going to benefit us in the workplace as well.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree, and I think it's about always assuming positive intent. I try to do this in all of my relationships, right? If I know that someone has performed very well previously and loves their job, and it shows up either a bad day, bad week, bad month, I have a feeling that something's going on, right? That is not related necessarily to what's going on at work. If it is going on at work, I hope I foster the kind of culture where they feel comfortable to come tell me.
Right.
But it's that assumption of like, okay, they're probably not a terrible employee. Actually, I have 11 months of data that says they're not. They're probably going through something at home, something in their relationship, something outside of work. And so being able to assist them in any way I can to make sure that they're showing up at work and that they're feeling fulfilled.
Sure.
So I can't get over that $500 stat, because the fact that 50% of Americans can't cover a $500 emergency is really scary, right? So why do you think that is? I mean, you dig into people's finances all the time, right? So why do you think that we are at this state?
Systemic oppression. Beyond that, beyond racism and sexism and sometimes policies that don't support us, I think it is coupled with a lack of education. My work, if you follow me for 1 second, you know that I've said a lot that your personal finances are about 10 to 20% your personal choices, and about 80 to 90% circumstantial, right? And so I'm really just here to try to help you navigate that 10 to 20%. So I think some of it is definitely, overspending, not advocating for yourself enough at work. I think a lot of it it's systemic oppression. We know that, and that's not a fun answer, but that is the answer. Mm-hmm. In terms of the things you can control, right, it is taking full advantage of your benefits and understanding and asking good questions. I remember my first job out of college, I was 21, and I remember the HR professional at that company was like, I have never been asked so many questions. Like, he knew my reputation before I even showed up. I was like, you're Cameron, nice to meet you. And he goes, oh, you're Tori. He's like, you asked a lot of questions. And I was like, yeah, I just wanted to fully understand, the scope of my benefits. So yeah, I think it's partially that, right? And it's also doing everything you can with the money you are making. But yeah, $500 is not a lack of hard work or too much avocado toast. It's systemic oppression.
Right.
Well, and financial planning, right? It comes down to doing what you can with the dollars you have, like you said. So do you think part of it too is that people don't know how to financially plan, or?
We know that the number one, so I work largely with women, and the number one reason women don't invest if they do have money is fear. So fear of making a mistake, fear of getting started, fear of losing money, right? And I educate women about how to invest, right? And the first thing I tell them is investing is actually way less complicated than you think it is. It's a staircase, just that first step is 20 feet high, and I just got to get you over that first step. And then also investing shouldn't be sexy, it should be stable and consistent over a long period of time. But of course, if you've been fed a narrative that investing's intimidating or investing's not for you, you shouldn't do it. So if those are the narratives you've been fed and what you're believing, then yeah, there is a huge barrier in the education gap there.
That's good. And I just can't get over the fact that I'm not invited to drink Chardonnay with you too.
You can
I'm
come.
joking.
You can come.
As long as Hot Luca's invited, I'm good.
Well, I want to talk about, I said that 7 out of 10 stat again. 7 out of 10 employees are looking to the employer to help them, right? And we kind of had this conversation, what is the role of the employer, right? Is it fair? I don't know if it's fair, but that's the expectation. So given that, we talked about communication helps. What else, Jennifer, should we do or can we do, or what benefits do you think that employers can provide to help with that $500, I don't have enough money to help with these expenses? Is there anything that comes top of mind, that ways we can, extend an olive branch, if you will?
Sure. I think, again, it's our role to help educate, but it doesn't necessarily mean we're the experts. So are you connected with experts? Are, again, you making available good educational information that's online where people can learn on their own time if they want to, and you're sharing that with them? It doesn't have to be we bring everyone into the cafeteria and have an all-employee meeting over a brown bag lunch to talk about, benefits and why you need to invest in your 401k or your HSA. Help people find information. I think, oppression is a great answer to that question, but it's also the systems which are part of the oppression that are set up. If you think back to the Great Recession in 2008, 9, 10, what brought us there? It was mortgage lending and people being in houses that they couldn't really afford, but the system allowed that. I find it interesting, we talk about, inflation, recession, high gas prices. Actually, they've gone way down, thank you. But the reality is you go to the airport and the place is full. I travel for years, and people are going places and spending money. So
5-hour wait at TSA at Seattle yesterday, because I flew out of Seattle.
Good news, it'll be like 15 minutes here.
Great. Thank you, Fargo. Appreciate it. Thank you.
But then I also saw, I was looking at Twitter over lunch today, and I just retweeted a random tweet that showed up in my timeline from the car loan finance guy or something. I don't know how he ended up there, but it was like, in 1992, 4% of car loans were for a car payment of over $1,000 a month. In 2022, it's 12.7%. And I'm like, who are these people that are buying cars that have a $1,000 a month car payment? When we're talking about, all we can talk about is recession, inflation.
Right.
Again, that's education. Some of it is, well, the system allowed me. I just bought a used car that, my mother passed away and I bought out her lease. And they're like, would you like a 92-month car payment? I was like, 92 months? How many years is that? We aren't necessarily responsible for our employees, but I think you can help them to understand by looking at the experts all around you. Again, Financial Feminist Podcast. Make people aware of that. Help them to find ways they can help themselves in addition to what you're doing to educate them. And my personal favorite with any kind of education is tell real life stories. Okay, so you make it real when you say you want to be, Grandma Tori and what it's going to look like. That's much better than saying, if you're 21 and you put $100 a month in your 401k, by the time you're 65, you'll have $12.5 billion.
Right? I mean,
No, I want to hear a real person, because that's not real to me. I want to hear stories of real people, and maybe some of them have to be anonymized, or maybe there are people out there who are willing to share their stories. We all watch reality TV. We know that people are willing to overshare. So how can you help people see real life examples of how being financially responsible can pay off in the long term?
So how would you say that employers can do that? Do they find employees who are willing to share those stories? Do they share made up stories that help people see the path? Or
I
what do you
mean,
recommend?
I've been asked to speak at companies over the past probably year and a half more than ever before, because they're realizing that wellness includes, your time at work, but also mental health, financial health, all of those things. So I think one of the most powerful benefits that you can give and you can receive is like a education stipend, right? Maybe that's a couple $100, maybe that's $1,000 a year to come to a conference or to, take a course. I know I'm based in Seattle. Microsoft has a very robust program where they offer this, and a lot of people actually end up taking like my course on, Personal Finance 101, right? So that's a smaller benefit as opposed to, paying somebody's, I don't know, whatever that costs $10,000, right? And that is not just beneficial for them now, makes them a better employee, and also sets them up really well for potential future opportunities. So I know that that's something very concrete. Maybe the budget allows for a couple thousand, maybe it's a couple hundred per person.
great.
Absolutely.
Well, I suppose we should probably talk about HSAs.
HSAs.
Yeah! All right, let's dive in.
Yeah. I mean, so we've talked about how people need to save for short-term expenses, long-term expenses. We've talked about how employees think that's up to the employer to help them. I mean, HSAs are kind of the elephant in the room, if you will, because I do think that they can help people with this thing. The issue is that it's that 20-foot step you were talking about a little bit. I think people see the high deductible health plan and they're like, whoa, that is not for me. I had a baby 6 months ago, and I'm on a high deductible health plan with our company, and it actually saved me, I think, to be on that plan. I mean, I knew exactly what my deductible was, I knew exactly what my out-of-pocket max was, and I knew exactly what my employer contribution to the HSA was. So I think employer contributions are so important. Employees are going to need $350,000 in today's dollars for retirement, for Grandma Tori. So how do they get there? So I guess my question to you, Jennifer, is all these employers in the room and all these HR professionals, how do we help them tell the story about why a high deductible health plan or why an HSA makes sense?
Again, I think the more you can share personal stories, and health and finances are some of the most personal that we don't necessarily want to share. But there may be some people in your organization that are willing to. For example, myself, when I left the corporate world, as I said, I didn't realize the value of the benefits and the fact that, I was paying less than $100 a month for single healthcare coverage, and then I had to go out and spend, at the time, in 2010, I think it was $283 for a high deductible health savings account, which I'd been trying to educate people on for years, but I was in the PPO. So to get out and have my own situation where now I'm putting money away, and I like seeing the money go up in my health savings account. Over the years, I'm now at, I think it's $793 a month for my personal individual insurance, and I'm healthy. I don't even go to the doctor every year. But that high deductible is out there, but the fact that I have a HSA account when I do have something, or I did have kind of a catastrophic incident a few years ago, I was in the emergency room and immediately felt a peace that I could pay for this, that I wasn't also worried about was my brain going to work right again after a concussion, but that I had money set aside to do that. So I think the more that you can share personal stories, it really helps. If there aren't people in your workplace, there are people that you can co-opt their stories outside. It's a much better way to educate people instead of just the dollars and cents on paper that make sense, but people find it hard to relate to themselves. So I think it's personal stories.
Yeah.
Well, I think sometimes it's semantics. Personally, we've gone away from using HDHP and we start saying an HSA eligible plan. Because I think sometimes just the way you perceive the plan that you have, right? And I think there's a lot of other come with those. So that's just a side note that I think.
Well, to add on to that too, I have a family member who shall remain nameless, but he reaches out to me every year during open enrollment and he's like, look at these options, like what do I do with this?
Yep.
And I've noticed that every year the HSA is on a page way over here and the HDHP is on a page way over here. And unless you really know about a high deductible health plan and an HSA, would you ever even know that those two
Right.
coexist? Would you ever realize that, yes, your premium is lower for the HDHP, but don't forget you also get this HSA contribution over here. I think we need to be better about tying those pieces together because if they see that contribution offsets the premium, that can be a huge story.
Yeah,
too.
the story's much more compelling. And speaking of stories, you were just talking about stories and making them personal, and that's how people connect to it. You told a story last year about you and your horse and how you had to use your HSA. And if you wouldn't mind, Jennifer, I would love to hear that story again. I think it was really impactful.
I'm still mad at her. I was out riding my horse by myself, which I don't usually do, but I had gotten really comfortable with riding her out in the field by myself. And we were literally as far away from my barn and people as we could be. And she decided that she was scared of something, and I tried to, if you know anything about horses and riding horses, I'm trying to be the leader. So even though she's rearing and doing things that are crazy, I'm like, no, I got to make her face it. I got to, whatever's in those bushes, I'm the leader. And she said, oh, I'm the leader. And she reared and spun and threw me off, and I had a concussion. And the next thing I remember, I wake up out in the field, and I'm like, I guess Roxy's gone. She ran away. Oh, I don't know where she went. I was like literally out of it, and I start walking back, and then I have to lay down in the field, and it's like 95 degrees. And finally, I called one of my friends that was back at the barn. I'm like, Roxy ran away. Could you go look for her? And they're like, I have her. Where are you? They drive out to get me. I don't remember them coming to get me. I drive myself home, which don't let somebody do that if they can't think. And the next morning when I woke up and I got out of bed, the room was spinning, and I was worried that, all of a sudden I might have vertigo. So again, I've only been to the emergency room actually once in my life, and I called an Uber to come get me, to take me to the emergency room. And again, I'm sitting there, and the first thing that comes to my mind is I have a $7,500 deductible. This is bad news. And then the second thing that comes to mind is I've been contributing to an HSA account for many years.
What's that login again?
Literally. So I was able to be present and to hear what, the fact that I only had a mild concussion and it was temporary something vertigo, so it did go away. But it really, again, that's a personal story that helped me to see that both what I had been doing over the years was helpful, and the reality is I've created a health savings account for my horses as well. I have 2 horses, and anybody that has animals, they cost money, and I know the vet bills just keep coming. So I just put aside a amount of money in a savings account to pay my vet bills every month. Nice. Because I don't get tax benefits for that.
Tori's
but again,
so excited.
When somebody has, an abscess or something and the vet's called, I feel at peace because my horses have a health savings account.
It's an HHSA.
I love that.
I did not know you could do that for horses. I don't own a horse, and now I want to get a horse just so I can get an HSA for that horse.
Add it to your grandma plan.
Yeah.
But again, that's a catastrophic event where I had some peace because I had set money aside, and I do like to see that money in the bank. But I just had a friend who just retired at the barn, another horse friend, and was talking with her last week, and she was so excited because she has an HSA account as part of her retirement benefit, and she's like, and I can spend the money on, and she was naming off all the things like the Tylenols and the whatever. She was excited. Now that's a story to tell rather than just saying, here's a PDF of all the things that you can buy with your HSA. Talk to someone who's able to do really cool things, like buy things they never thought they could with the money that they've been setting aside.
Yeah, that's really compelling when you think about, oh, you can buy Band-Aids with your HSAs, and you can, like, those things are great, but it's the stories where, like, I'm in an emergency, I didn't expect this to happen. Like you said, I love your aha moment, like, I put money away. That's so huge, and I think that peace of mind is really important, how HSA can fit into that.
You don't want people thinking about, well, again, I'm single, so it's always, should I go? Should I spend the money? I have the money.
Right.
Well, the nice thing about HSA is there's two sides to it, right? There's the side where an emergency comes up, you have those funds, you can spend it. And actually, we've been talking a lot about just how under-realized, I guess it is, for employees about the tax advantages. And when people hear tax advantages, they're like, woo, I have no clue what you're talking about. But it's really, I think, Benefits Pro just did an article, and they said it's actually like getting $30 off for every $100 that you spend. So how do you communicate that to employees during open enrollment so they know, like, hey, it's actually like getting a discount, right? But then the other aspect of it is this retirement. I mean, when you don't have an accident with your horse, you can save that money and invest it. So I guess my question for you, Tori, is like, how do you even branch that with an HSA and with employees during open enrollment to teach them about the investment potential?
Remove any jargon. So we just talked about tax advantaged, right? I majored in theater, guys. Like, honestly, I did not study finance. I did not study business. If you would have told me tax advantage 6 years ago, I would have done the same thing where I'm like, I don't know what that means. The government is incentivizing you to save by offering you tax breaks. You get free money from the government, right, for saving, right? When I phrase it that way, free money from the government never gives me free money, right? Or free anything or something that's slightly better. So like that's how I would phrase it to somebody, right? And that's how I explain retirement accounts or HSAs, right? Is the government is incentivizing you to save by offering you some tax breaks. The power with HSAs, right, is that they're tax advantaged or, they're, see, there I go, using the same phrase I told everybody not to say. They're tax advantageous, like in 3 different ways, right? And that's the really exciting part. And again, connecting it to story, connecting it to why, right? It can protect you now. It can also protect 40-year-old you, 65-year-old you, 80-year-old you, whenever that makes sense. But yeah, eliminating all jargon, do as I say, not as I do. Eliminate all of that, and in the way you're communicating is going to be really helpful because again, that's an SAT word that no one knows.
Right. Another one of those is the triple tax saving. Right. Same thing, right? Again, where you're saving money, right? Any money you make in your HSA, that is tax-free, and then when you take it out, that is tax-free again. So there's a lot of things that I think we just have to be careful how we communicate those things because they can be very confusing. Communications major, so same thing, right? Like, whoop, right over my head, and I work in the biz. So I think we combine these two now. So we just talked about the value, but we also talked about we're in this world of inflation. So let's hit these head on. I only have so many dollars to go around, Tori. How am I supposed to prioritize the things that I need, saving for emergencies? Now I know I'm supposed to put money in this HSA because I'm getting free money from the government, and I'm supposed to do my 401k match. Like, could you talk about, like, during these times, especially inflation, what is your advice for how do I share my dollars and what's my priorities?
It's the number one question I get of like, literally that's how I explain it, of like, I have 6 things I have to worry about. What do I worry about first? Number one thing, like I said before, is that emergency fund. 3 months of living expenses in a high yield savings account. It should be liquid, meaning that you can access it at any time, right? It's not tied up investments. It's not in an HSA, right? There are restrictions to what you can use that money for. Right. Emergency fund is there if you lose your job, if you fall off your horse, right? Whatever you need. The second thing is to take full advantage of those employee benefits, right? So in terms of accounts, it's first a high yield savings account for your emergency fund. And second, it's to get any employer match that you're offered at your 401k. And again, the way I describe that is it's free money.
Free money.
And I describe too, it's not like 3% match. Again, everybody I work with is like, I don't know what that means. If you contribute 3% of your salary, right, your company is doubling that with you doing half of the work. And then probably that third thing is the HSA, right, and doing everything you can to max that out. The other thing too that would shock, I think, a lot of people is that a lot of the questions I get is like, do you have to contribute the max? No, you do not. And making sure you explain that, right? What is the max? Do I have to contribute that? What if I can't contribute the, what is it, 36,500?
Right.
You can contribute anything up to that max per year. So explaining that as well is it's like you don't have to max out your 401k. You don't have to max out your HSA. Just get as close as you can.
Right.
That's great. I mean, we've talked about the high deductible health plan, which I feel like is a swear word now, and I shouldn't even say it. But so we know, though, through research, that employees struggle in year one with a high deductible health plan, probably because they don't understand it, right? They don't understand the value of the HSA. They don't understand the high deductible health plan. But by year 3, you see their satisfaction in the plan rise. What can employers do during open enrollment to help those people get from, year 1 to year 3?
Well, I don't want to repeat myself and say share stories, but I'll say share stories. But also, I think there's real value in helping people to see that incremental action makes a difference. So as you said, you don't have to max out your contribution to the HSA account or to your 401k. Start with $10 a week, $5 a week, whatever it is, just get people into the idea of contributing to the accounts. And then if they're like me, I think most of us like to see the numbers going up in the accounts. And again, you also like to see it available if and when you're ready to use it. In my business, for example, I read a book years ago called Profit First. And I always said, that's something I should do when I get X amount of money. I'll start using Profit First. Well, at the beginning of this year, I said in both of my business, I'm going to go to Profit First. And Profit First is in the 10th and the 25th of the month, you allocate any money that came in certain percentages. And one of those is to a profit account, which then you can take that every quarter and go do something fun if you want. Or owner's comp, I forget which one it is. I got all my accounts set up, and I'm so excited on the 10th and the 25th when that date shows up on my task list, allocate funds for Profit First. I love allocating my money. Before, I spent all of the money that came in, and I said I didn't have enough money to use the Profit First system. Once I started using the Profit First system, not only do I have the opportunity to see where I'm growing my money where it matters for taxes, so that I'm not like every Able going, oh, I need to come up with money to pay my taxes. And I think it's the same for health savings accounts and, again, even 401k. How are we showing people that incremental action can get you to that 3-year point where you're like, this is actually working and I can do more because I haven't missed the small amount that I've been contributing?
I was that person. I mean, I used to contribute just like $10, and I was like, hey, this is good. And then I logged into my account one day, I'm like, wait, I got $500 in here? What is this?
Well, that was my tip as well, is like small habits, right? Even if you can't save $1 million, I think, especially I see with women, they're like, oh, I can't do the full amount, so I'm just not going to do anything, right? And it's that feeling of if I can't do it perfectly, I'm not going to do it at all. And it's like, no, done is better than perfect, right? Progression is better than perfection. And so those small habits, in addition to, like the tip I have for everybody, you can do this right now, like log into your phone, log into your benefits app, increase it 1%. You're not gonna feel it. Like 1% to your 401k, 1% more to your HSA, you will probably not feel that 1%.
You all have $1,000 car payments, so why not?
So yeah, maybe it's every 6 months, every year, right? You could put it on your calendar. The other thing, any person who is trying to manage their money, we have a practice at Her First 100K and we call it the money date. And it's committed financial self-care time, right? A bottle of wine, like down comforter cocoon. I order like Indian takeout from my favorite restaurant. And I sit there and I look at my money. And if I have like a partner I'm managing money with, I do this with them. Yeah. And that's your perfect opportunity to read through, okay, what benefits are offered to me? How can I, set up automatic transfers so it's happening without me even having to think about it? Can I increase it 1%? Am I going to feel it? Can I cancel the things I'm not using, right? That is designated time on your calendar, non-negotiable, where you're having a date with your money, right? And you're asking your money, how can I better this relationship? Yep. And money is asking you back, how can I work harder for you?
That's awesome. I'm such a nerd. I'm like an old man. I have my cup of coffee and I go log onto my spreadsheets on Saturday mornings. It's right. The same thing.
It's spreadsheets,
it's much sexier when you say it than when
I
say it. But yeah, that's what I'm doing is a date with my money, right? Yep. I love that. I think there's a lot of, and this is perfect to my final question around like, there's got to be a lot of like behavioral science around this. Like the idea of like when I start to invest in an HSA, during your research, Tori, or when you work with clients, have you found anything about like if you start these habits, if you start, the idea of investing in just a 401k, an idea of investing a little in an HSA, are we kind of building on momentum on how they should be thinking about?
Oh, right? God, yeah. So, like, Financial Feminist, the book I wrote that's coming out in December, like, literally the first whole chapter is about the psychological or the emotional side of money because that is so that is everything, right? And that's why I see, unfortunately, a lot of people end up, progressing for a while and then defaulting, is they haven't worked through the psychological BS around their money, right? Or they haven't understood how those narratives around high deductible plans, right, are bad, or investing's complicated. They haven't understood that those are narratives that probably aren't true. So in terms of, your progression, it's just like anything, right? I remember the last corporate job I had a ping pong table. I was terrible at ping pong, like comically bad at ping pong. And I was the only woman at the time at the company, and a bunch of dudes that would play ping pong, and they would just whoop me, like every single time. And I played every day for a year. And that first couple months was really uncomfortable and it was really embarrassing. Like they saw me be really bad. And then I cried the day I beat the best person in the office. I was so excited. And I just beat my boyfriend at ping pong after talking a lot of smack, and it was just great. So it's when you're doing anything new, Brene Brown has this lovely quote, right, of there's going to be a lot of discomfort. Mm-hmm. And money is the thing that we think we should be randomly good at. But I didn't come from my mother's womb speaking Italian or playing the tuba. It's in the same way that I don't know how to money unless I teach myself or unless I learn. And then we see progress over time, right? You see yourself get better. You see that money in the account build. You suddenly know what HSA stands for, and you're like, oh, I can explain this to a friend, right? Yep. That's going to take some time and some really deep vulnerability, but it's going to feel so good when you get to the point where you're financially confident.
Yeah, I love it. We've hit on a lot of things. Mm-hmm. So good. Such good convo. But sometimes we miss stuff. Is there anything else as we kind of wrap up this conversation, anything that you'd like to share with our HR listeners or our audience that's here today on whether it be financial wellness or HSAs in general? We'd just love kind of your final thoughts.
I was just sitting here thinking, I think it's really important. I know many of you have very diverse workforces, of hourly employees to salaried employees to maybe senior executives. And I think a lot of our education and maybe the stories that we're sharing are for people who are at least comfortable financially. And many of you employ people who are very much living paycheck to paycheck. They might be single parents with multiple kids, and they're trying to figure out how to stretch their dollars because $20 more a week in gas does matter. Mm-hmm. And we're like, put money on your HSA. It's really easy. Have a date with yourself. Look at your spreadsheet every Saturday. They're not really relating to that. So It really is important to personalize your education for the various people in your workplace. And that's where I go back to, it can't just be every October we stand up and go, HSAs are a great benefit. Your 401k is an amazing way to live on a beach when you get older. Mm-hmm. No, let's talk about how they can contribute today in their personal circumstance and what it could mean for them in their lives today and in the future, and understand that there's a wide variety and perspective of that in our workplace.
Great thoughts.
Great
Tori?
I was going to share something very similar. Yeah, I mean, it's the understanding that, every person's financial situation is different. Personal finance is personal. And the realization, too, of, I can't tell you the amount of people who have come to me and just, through my work, I have talked about how systemic oppression plays a part in money and finance. And just the, sigh of relief of just, thank you, because I thought it was all me, or I thought it was my fault, right? I thought it was my fault that I didn't know this. Right. I thought it was my fault that I couldn't save money. I thought it was a defect, and it's not, right? It's just, you're not taught this, and in a lot of ways, you're actually gate-kept from this information in order for you to not progress financially. And so, one of the best things you can do as an employer is offer empathy and grace when things are great and bad, and also, being very specific of tailoring your advice and tailoring your guidance to people's personal situation.
I love these episodes, Kelsey. These are good. This is so good. Both of you, thank you. One thing I heard is chase the free money. There's a lot of free money that's out there from employers or from the government. A lot of good stuff, and HSAs are one of those ways to do that. Thank you so much for a wonderful conversation. Those of you listening, those of you in the room, you can get involved with HSA Day. All the information will be in the show notes, or you've got here in the audience, you've got a lovely handout with all the information, ways you can get learned on HSAs. Thank you so much. Jennifer, Tori, you were phenomenal guests. I knew you would be. Thanks so much for coming on the podcast.